just really special to get everybody together. Our family is just honored to be able to share this property with anybody that wants to be here, honestly. And Che doesn't really realize this, but all of this happened because of him. It really did. And Fred, we've been talking about this for a while, and a lot of stuff has been happening in between. But he's like, we have to get that young man here and let people hear him. He's special. And that is true. Very true.
I appreciate it.
This all is really, we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to really hear this special young man. He is amazing. And when I called him or texted him and asked if he would do this, it was instantly yes. And
Tell
that
how
was,
you know Jay.
I'm a teacher, high school counselor, and he was at West Montgomery when I was there. And just went to, did you go to Methodist? Or went to Methodist. And I'll let him tell a little bit more about himself, but works for Duke now?
Yes, ma'am.
So has really done a lot in his life already, in his young life, but not just work-wise, in motivation with young people. So that is just very special to see, and we love that. So I'm going to let him introduce his friend. We're going to have just a discussion right now. He's going to talk, and I think anybody can chime in kind of thing. And then Meredith, who I'll introduce in a few minutes, is going to sing some songs. And then Che's going to speak again after that, not in the discussion forum, just in a little speech talk. So
He
that's-
preaches. That
he
boy
preaches.
preaches.
Yep.
Just whatever you want to do.
There ain't no other word. I watched him on YouTube. I wish I had his gift.
Yes, sir. So just to thank you, Ms. Gooch, thank you, Pastor Fred, for this opportunity. Just to kind of begin in just a discussion fashion, me and Josh are going to have a conversation about some of the transitions that we have went through in life, and then give everyone an opportunity to kind of chime in as well on, just ask us some questions about our experiences and what we're seeing as, millennials growing up and matriculating through life. So I met Josh while I was at Methodist University in 2014. He came over to my room and never left. So he wasn't my roommate. For those of you who met EB when we met here the last time, EB was my roommate. And so he knows EB pretty well as well. So I'm gonna let Josh introduce himself as to just tell him what you do now.
Yeah, so that's true. Went to his room, never left. But I graduated from Methodist in 2018 with a degree in sport management, which is a business degree. Wasn't really sure what to do, didn't have many doors open. Worked with a baseball team in Winston-Salem for a few weeks. They threw me in the parking lot, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. So now I'm in the fitness industry. I'm an assistant manager at a gym that's opening up in the Winston-Salem area, and I also have an online personal training business that I run. Che is actually one of my clients now, so the friendship goes deeper than just a text or a phone call. We help each other out, mentally and physically. So one of my better friends, someone I look up to, and that's why I'm here, is just to support him. So.
Yeah. So, Josh, can you kind of talk about some of the transitions that you went through, going from high school to college? You actually changed your major twice.
Yeah,
right?
2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that and what that decision, what went into that and why.
Yeah. So high school to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to study. To start off, I just knew I wanted to play lacrosse. I played lacrosse in high school, and I was getting looked at by a few different schools, and just knew I wanted to play lacrosse. Didn't know what I wanted to study, didn't really know what I was passionate about, just wanted to play lacrosse. Methodist was actually the very last school that I toured. I toured in the beginning of May, so 1 month before I graduated, and really hit it off with my head coach, and that's how I ended up at Methodist, and it ended up being a blessing. So I went to Methodist as an English major, because my mom always told me growing up that I was a great arguer and that I should go to law school. And so I was like, okay. And so I started out as an English major my freshman year, and really sat down and kind of thought about it and realized I didn't want to go 8 straight years in college because I didn't see myself as a student without lacrosse, or I didn't see myself as a student without the athlete part. And so changed my major to English education. And my sophomore year, I took an education class and didn't like it, and so dropped the education part. And my dad works in a bank, so I went to business, sport management, and decided I wanted to do like marketing with a sports team and stuff like that. Added an accounting major or minor because I loved accounting when I took it, and then realized I wasn't going to graduate on time, so dropped the minor and just kind of got my degree on time as a sport management major. And that's kind of that transition of all those majors is the reason why I didn't open up the right doors while I was in college, because I wasn't able to secure a real internship. I interned with the athletic department at Methodist, but I didn't want to live in Fayetteville post-graduation. And so the transition from college to the adulthood was a real eye-opener, because I had no idea what I was about to do once I graduated, which is a lot of us when we get out of college, if we don't secure a job right away. And so there was a few months of like panic, anxiety, stress, not knowing what to do. I didn't want to collect part-time job after part-time job, so I just accepted a job with a baseball team because it was the right avenue that I graduated with. And then I didn't want to help park cars, and so I started studying to become a personal trainer. 8 months later, I got my certification, immediately got a job in a gym, and the rest is history from there. So.
Yeah, I think his experience speaks to is a lot of millennials, a lot of young people don't really understand or know coming out of high school and going into college even what decisions they are to make, right? And it speaks to some of the areas of improvement within our education system, right? We're expecting 18-year-olds to kind of know what they want to do coming out of high school, have it all figured out. But I think Josh shows a great example of having to change your major a few times to make a decision and still trying to figure it out, right? And I will say that he's an excellent personal trainer. I have gained 30 pounds since January, just working with him, so even virtually. So he's a great personal trainer. But Josh, tell us a little bit more about, so within that transition, right, you also started kind of from the time you've graduated and from the time that you've been in the professional world now. You graduated in 2018. I finished a year early, so that's why we didn't graduate together. But you finished in 2018, mm-hmm. and now you're starting this spiritual journey, right? Trying to grow closer to God. What has that been like? What has that transition been like for you?
In all honesty, the best is inconsistent right now.
Speak up, bro.
Huh?
Speak up.
Oh, inconsistent right now, but working on it. I grew up in a Christian household. Both my parents are Christian. My mom grew up Baptist. My dad AME. So grew up in the church, around church. But once I became old enough to kind of make that decision, that's when I started getting away from the church around high school and in college. I got away from the church and then went through a few personal things in my life after graduation. Dealt with a little spell of depression, have some anxiety issues. And so I guess really from the time the pandemic hit and everything shut down up until now, it's been kind of uphill battle trying to get back into or grow my relationship with God. And so Che helps me out with that. He holds me accountable at times, but at the end of the day, you know, it's on me to kind of do it. And I try to watch church on YouTube. I haven't been back into the church since the doors closed in 2020, but I try to keep myself consistent. So it's been an uphill battle, but when I am consistent with it, and I am in the church or doing a devotional or reading the scripture, I do feel like weights are being lifted off my shoulder. And so I try to remember that feeling on those days where I try to make excuses for not waking up on time to actually go to church or not start getting on the live stream when it starts and stuff like that. But yeah, it's
Yeah, and so again, another example of just how difficult it can be to make that transition into figuring out this personal relationship for myself, right? My mom grew up Baptist, my dad grew up AME. Now I have to make this personal choice, this personal decision for myself to have that relationship and hold myself accountable, right? And then also having not to, because it's not about me, right? But having, I think what this shows is the power of accountability and the power of having people around you that are positive influences, right? So whereas he helps me on the physical, I can help him in the spiritual, right? And so having that relationship together, we help grow each other, right? As the Bible talks about iron sharpening iron. And so having those relationships, having those friendships is important. And I like Josh's story because it shows different transitions from that young people are experiencing right now. The transition from high school to college, from college to professional, to now having a spiritual transition, if you will, right? Not going as much, but wanting to know more, wanting to learn more. And we have, as adults, as young adults, as people who are trying to reach our children, our youth, right? We have to understand that it may not happen overnight, but it may be a gradual transition, right? And everyone moves at a different pace. Whereas I was serving in college ministry while I was at Methodist, maybe Josh wasn't, but he still has that desire and seeking God, right? And so I can't condemn him because he's not coming, right? And then point the finger at him, because now that's going to turn him away from church. Now that's going to take him away from wanting to know the God that I serve, right? And so for me to say, oh man, he hit me up a couple months ago, say, hey man, I want to start a devotion. I said, hey, let's do it. Let's do it together, right? Because he knows me, because he knows that I've built that relationship, and I never judge him for any decisions that he made, right, wrong, indifferent, right? And he doesn't do the same. He does the same for me. So having those types of relationships is important. Right? And I think it's important that we understand that as we, raise children, as we speak and mentor our youth, that we allow them to experience life. I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging, right? To see them make mistakes, to see people that you love and care about, and that it's the wrong path. But sometimes you just have to allow them to have that grace, show that grace to them, give them that grace, and have those conversations, right? Help them understand why you care about these decisions, or why it's not okay for this or that, right? And I think this is a great transition to open up the floor for any questions that you all may have about, some of our experiences and because Josh, actually, you worked at Duke during the summer, doing some summer camps. What was that experience like with, tell like who you were working with and like some of the age ranges and stuff like that.
So I was a RA in college, or a resident assistant in college, just like Che was at Methodist. And that opened the door for me to work at Duke University over the summer of 2017 and 18 and 19 in one of their, they used to have an international studies program called Duke Summer Session, where they would invite international high school students that want to go to American universities. They would come over and stay at Duke for 6 to 8 weeks and take actual college courses that would reflect on their transcripts, so when they apply to these American schools, they have a better chance at getting accepted. It was, I believe, 80% Chinese, and for a lot of them, it was their first time in, the States. So for me, the reason I took that position is because my first year as a resident assistant, I was in a freshman residence hall, and I really enjoyed the fact that I was basically that first point of contact with kids making that transition from high school to college. And so anything they needed, they knew they could come to me and they could trust me. And watching them kind of grow up over the 2 semesters that they were at Methodist was something that I really enjoyed, because my passion has always been to help people, which is how I ended up as a personal trainer. And so being able to do that same thing at Duke with international students, and then in turn learning more about their culture, or where they come from, because I couldn't help them with their homework. I'm not Duke smart. But just being able to help them with like stuff outside of what they're reading in the book, helping them with our culture and what we bring to the table as an American university or American culture and stuff like that. And then I'm still in touch with some of the students that I worked with my very first summer at Duke, and they actually go to Duke currently. And they thank me and the program, and it's kind of sad that the program doesn't exist anymore because of COVID. But it was honestly one of the best experiences and jobs that I ever had working over there, just because, again, just being that first point of contact, literally from the time they get off that 24-hour flight from where they came from overseas here, I'm the first person they see. And we just built that relationship over 8 weeks, and they remember you, forever. And you help them make that transition from China to America, from high school to college, from one culture to another. So
That's good. Any questions about any of the experiences and things that we have encountered over the course of our young lives?
Shay, tell us about your faith journey. Tell me about his. Tell me about yours.
Yeah, so I grew up, my cousin Didi can probably attest to young Che, 3-year-old Che, preaching. There used to be VHS tapes of that. But I think during that, so that was up until maybe 5 or 6. And then probably like all young children, we stray away for a little bit for a time, and I wasn't actively going to church, but probably between that 5 or 6 on a consistent basis until I turned 18. And when I turned 18, there was always something, I was always a good kid, just morally, right? Just morally a good kid. Never got in any trouble. And so by that standard, I thought I was okay, right? But I knew there was something else missing. And so that's when I really started my faith journey. Turning 18, I'm getting ready to go to college. I'll never forget, it was, I believe it was Easter Sunday. It was the first Sunday I went back and started going consistently. So that was Easter Sunday of 2014. And from there, I remember freshman year, if EB was here, he would probably tell you, he would catch me listening. I would be falling asleep to Joel Osteen messages or just different sermons. I'd just be falling asleep to them. And I wasn't a part of FCA my freshman year. I joined the second semester, so like going into my sophomore year is when I said, hey, I want to be a part of this. And that's when I really got active in FCA and was really taking my faith seriously at that moment in time, and had a chance to speak at FCA. So like I said, I finished in 3 years, so my last year I spoke at FCA, and from there moved to Charlotte where I currently live, and it took me some time I was working on my master's at the time, and it took me some time to get involved in the church, and I found a church that was small, just starting, trying to grow, and I joined there. And so some of what Fred mentioned actually happened because the church had a speaker series in which 7 speakers gave a 7-minute sermon. And it was recorded, and I posted the video on Facebook, and I was selected to speak for that one particular time, and I posted on Facebook, and the response was crazy. The response from even in the church was crazy. So from that moment on, it was always inside of me though. I always felt something inside of me, if I'm being completely honest, because Josh would tell you, and Didi and Ms. Gooch can tell you, I am, for them to see me speaking in the way that I speak was shocking, because I am very introverted. Dylan can probably attest to it. I am very introverted. And so to see me speak now, it's like, who is that guy, right? But I think that shows the power of, just submitting to God's grace and actually stepping into the calling that you have. So that's a little bit about my faith journey.
Who has been the biggest influence or
Oh man, that's a tough question. I'd probably have to say my grandmother. She was who I was going to church with whenever I was 3. She plays the organ, so I would be sitting up there beside her while she was playing the organ, and just seeing her journey of faith, right, and being involved in the church and how devout she is to ministry and serving in that capacity. So it's definitely like for her now. So I recently, in January, I accepted a call to become an ordained minister. And my grandmother said, I knew it was coming. I'm just glad I was alive to see it. And that just touched me.
So, I think you fulfilled the scripture, write it on their heart and they'll return.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What a journey.
Any other questions or anything?
Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.